all for being here. It's so good to see my family here, everybody that I know and work with. Abigail, thank you for bringing the magic and setting the stage. A few things, a couple of quick disclaimers. Hi. First of all, I'm probably going to cuss and I'm probably going to cry. So if you can't handle those things, you may need to just walk out now. But thank you all so much for being here. And I think I'm going to start with just kind of elaborating just a tiny bit on my past and where I've come from, and kind of how I got where I am today, and how the spirit and spirituality is sort of infused into all of that and everything that I do. When I was invited to speak about spirituality, I was telling a few of you beforehand, I've sort of overthought this, and I've walked all the way around it trying to understand exactly what angle I wanted to take, because I could go a plethora of paths. So bear with me, because I have no idea what I'm about to say. I'm just gonna let Spirit speak through me. And so my mantra that I say every day is, Spirit, please speak louder than my ego. So that is what I'm here to do today, that I'm going to allow the Spirit to just flow through me, and I have no idea what's about to happen. So just to kind of unpack where I've come from, though, to begin, when I was in my young 20s, let me even step further back. I had a child when I was 19 years old and was a single mom, trying to figure out what the heck to do with my life, especially as a creative. I knew in my heart of hearts there was no other path for me beyond being an artist, and I wasn't sure how that was going to quite unfold and blossom, but an artistic career was in my future. And so I unexpectedly got pregnant. I bought a Volkswagen bus and was going to travel all over the US and work at organic farms, and then I got pregnant and was like, oh, I probably shouldn't do that maybe while I was pregnant. That was my mindset at the time. So I went to college and pursued my Bachelor of Fine Arts in printmaking, and I did that. It took me 8 years because I had a child and was just trying to pave my way. Met my husband along the way. He was studying philosophy, and I was studying art, and that was a fascinating combination for me. We both graduated. I graduated in the height of the recession, 2008, 2009, and wasn't quite sure what to do. A bachelor's degree was irrelevant, especially in liberal arts. There was not quite anything for me to do. I was applying to everything. So I founded the little craft show, and it was quite literally, I didn't take it seriously. We didn't overthink the name. We just called it what it was. It was this little thing, and it was the little craft show. And having started that when I was probably, I don't even remember, 23 or something, 23 years old. I had legitimately only been to maybe 2 craft fairs in my whole life. And so all I knew to do in that moment was to create what I thought that I would want and what other people would need. And so that is sort of the secret sauce of the stew that I create in all the community projects I do, is just creating things that resonate with the community and that resonate with me. And so I worked really hard to make damn sure that the artists were seen and taken care of, and sort of started just writing my own rules, because there was no script for starting a craft fair. And that first time I just did it with love and compassion, and just opened up a space to let artists come in and sell their work. Because I needed money to buy my kids Christmas presents that year. And so that project exceeded all expectations, and I think because it was rooted in love and compassion, and that for me is sort of am I good? Sorry. The essence of spirituality for me. I don't want to talk about religion. I do have a religious past, but I'm trying to untangle that and not identify with it any longer. And what I refer to now as spirit is, I don't know why I do this every time I say it. There it is. It's sort of the God of my own understanding. You know, I've sort of customized the God that makes the most sense to me. And so when I refer to spirit, some people might call it God or the Holy Spirit or the universe or whatever the heck you might want to call it, but I usually say spirit. And so I I feel like I should tell you this like weird story. So I was trying to figure out, I love telling stories, and that's maybe all I'm going to do is just infuse stories through this thing. Okay. I was trying to figure out the angle I should take with this talk today. And so naturally I'm like trying to, there it is again, tap into the Spirit and just be like, what is it that I need to say? What angle is it that I need to take? And I don't know how you all feel about tarot cards. It's controversial for some, I'm sure, but it's something that I call on or I use sometimes to remind myself of something I already know. And so that's something I'm here to do today is just remind you all of something you already know. I'm not here to teach you anything, but I'm here to just be a reflection to you so you can be reminded of your essence. So if there's something I say that resonates with you, it's because it's in you too. So I'm like sitting there and I'm like, oh, I should pull a card and just see what Spirit tells me the angle I should take with this. I haven't done it. I haven't pulled cards in a while, and so the way I do tarot is I usually close my eyes, I shuffle the deck, and I literally speak out loud. Spirit, show me some clarity, remind me of what I need to say, give me a piece to run with, and I'm like, whatever card that I pull, I'll just run with that direction. So I'm shuffling, and what I do is I trust that the card that I need will fall out, and so. Took a long time. I'm shuffling. I'm like, oh my God, maybe I'm not even supposed to talk. I can't even find an angle to take. And what finally fell out, I was like, oh, good, this is it. And I'm going to totally trust that whatever's on this card is what I'm going to need. And the freaking card that fell out of the deck was the card that I probably should have removed. I usually do remove from the deck before I shuffle, and it's the card. It's like the Joker. It's the. It's not the Joker. It was the card that had a photo of the woman that designed the deck, and it was her bio. And I was like, okay, point. Received. This is. So I'm just going to tell my story because that's what Spirit told me to do. So I think that's why spirituality spoke to me. This topic did, because I'm like, it's just infused in everything I do, and I just trust. And every time I tried to think about what to say today and what I should do, I'm just going to trust that this is what I'm supposed to say. So. Back to the little craft show. I did that. That wound up being a 10-year project. That I was able to, by the 5th or 6th year, make a living at and sustain my family with that. I have 2 daughters. And really just not trying so hard not to remove my ego from all of these projects. Because if it's for me and from me, it just would not work. And so trusting that, just trusting the community. I almost wanted to just highlight all of you here because I even asked Jessica, I was like, can you send me the guest list? Because I want to highlight the people in the crowd because I know they're going to be cool. After the little craft show, I learned so much about how to organize the community, and really, truly that it's just really freaking simple. You don't have to make things really complicated. You just show up and you just love the shit out of people. And that's really all that you need to do, and the rest sort of falls into place. There's a lot of hustle in between there, of course, but to just trust that that's the process of it, is to just, it's rooted in love and compassion and understanding, and knowing that every single one of us is fighting like hell for something. We're all just fighting like hell. We're all worried about ourselves. We're all worried about the next person. Maybe I'm projecting, but I do feel like at the essence of all of us, we're concerned with, are we doing this right? Am I doing enough? And is this the right path? Am I supposed to go this way or that way? How will it be perceived? What if it falls apart? We're all in that same zeitgeist, and when I could seriously tap into that and recognize oh shit, no one's different. We're all the same, and we're all trying to progress forward, and to accomplish whatever the thing is that we're fighting like hell about, and that we're sitting with. So when I could recognize that and step into that, then I was fearless. It was like there's nothing that can stop me because we're all the freaking same. And if I can see that in you and you, then there's no way for this thing to fail. So I took that energy and I started a grassroots campaign from my beloved hometown of Springdale, Arkansas, which is where I was born and raised. I have been there for 5 long generations, raising the 6th generation. And I won't go too much into it because it's sort of a grassroots project that served its purpose and I'm letting it rest. And, but I took what I learned from the little craft show and that energy of we're all just fighting for something, and recognizing that sometimes people just needed a platform or a voice or someone to help advocate for something. So that's what the little craft show was doing. It was empowering these artists to come in and you come in and do your thing and do it really well. And if we all do that, it's the rising tides, lifts all ships, or lifts, what is that saying? Lifts all ships or something. So I took that energy into Team Springdale with me and just infused that love into the community, and was trying to be anonymous, and that didn't really work out for me, but and it was just encouraging people to show your side of Springdale. What are you doing in Springdale? Use this hashtag. And it was at a period when hashtags were maybe more effective than they are today, because it's so diluted, but getting people to use the Team Springdale hashtag, it quickly blew up and blossomed into something beyond my wildest expectations. The city wound up rebranding after our initiative because they recognized that people cared and were paying attention. There were art initiatives started. I started a taco tour, again, to just love on the local taquerias and make sure those small and local businesses weren't forgot in the conversation. Man, I really just like a really good underdog story. I like to find the people that are ooh, you're doing cool shit. Come over here and do this, so we can empower you and you can grow and elevate. Because the spirit of competitiveness, that is garbage. Just quit that game. And and if social media makes you feel that, get off of social media. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it. And you don't need it, honestly. I don't know if you guys know who Rob Bell is. God, I can't even believe I'm bringing that up. He's a reformed pastor that went through this whole awakening process. But anyway, he's absolutely I don't know, I draw wisdom from him quite a bit. I saw my friend Brittany and totally lost my train of thought. Why did I bring him up? It'll come back to me. Social media, thank you so much, my fellow Amber. He doesn't have any social media presence, and all he has is a podcast now, and he's an author. He sells a ton of books, and he just released a podcast yesterday or a couple days ago that's called "Quote Yourself." And it's just really, he just kind of gets to the core of something. It's quit quoting other people, quit trying to recreate what other people are doing. Stop looking at their artwork to inspire yours. Stop pulling riffs from that music because it's something, it's I know there's an alchemy to all of that, and that's part of the creative process. But at the end of the day, quote yourself, look at yourself and create what's yours. And that energy is something with, Team Springdale. I created a time when no one was looking at Springdale. People were, it was the underdog. But I could see it as this mecca for artists because it's cheap and accessible. You could, at that time, buy a house for $40,000. And I'm people gotta know this. They gotta see this. So really advocating for my city helped elevate my creative position because I leaned into this process and trusted it, and was eventually hired to work for and help build our Downtown Springdale Alliance, which I wound up using my creative juices for that as well to produce. I think the number was 104 events in 1 year. That's crazy. I don't recommend it. But it was beautiful to try to like build a scene again. And I do some graphic design. I'm not a graphic designer, but maybe I'm a graphic designer. I find myself designing quite a bit. So I branded all of these projects: Little Craft Show, Team Springdale, the Taco Tour, the Art Initiative, and then the Downtown Springdale Alliance, and just infusing my creativity into these projects, because that for me was the best way to tell the story, was to use my creativity. So as an artist, I was able to just sort of take that creative problem solving that we have to take into our projects, and I just applied it to the community, and just tried to fill gaps where I felt like there were gaps. After the Downtown Springdale Alliance, I did that for 2 years, and honestly just burnt myself out. It was too much, too fast. We were only a staff of 2, and the other staff member was the executive director, so she was working on things way beyond what I was doing. They're in a better place now, but when I was there, I just needed to get out because it was just too much. And so I really just stepped out of that and trusted the process of my art. And I will say too, my creative art making process has been a constant through all of this. And I know that sounds insane, and I probably sound like a crazy manic woman. But this is how I live and thrive. If I'm not working on a project, or at least that used to be my story, if I wasn't working on a project, I needed to have multiple things going, spinning so many different plates to scratch that creative itch. I'll say today that creative itch doesn't itch as hard anymore. I don't feel that desire to produce and create at the level I was doing before. And a lot of that is just this post-COVID world that we're in. Nothing feels the same. Everything's different. Nobody knows what the rules are, which is freaking awesome, because you're at this space where you can just rewrite the whole script. And so that brings me to where I am today. I practiced my art for 2 years and just really tapped in. And during that process, I became a master naturalist. And I became really interested in, it started with foraging for mushrooms. I'd been doing that for years before, because I was really interested in learning the wild and medicinal mushrooms and herbs and plants that were growing here in the Ozarks that I could take with me and learn from and eat and heal with. And so I learned so much through that process. And I've been using the word untangle so much. I really felt like I was untangling everything that I had learned from being in this like almost chaotic state of producing events for the community and sort of returning home to myself. And so I found that in the solitude and peace and quiet in the forest, and started trying to learn the mushrooms. And it started there. And it was really in retrospect, it was an attempt for me to really understand my Ozark heritage. What the hell does that even mean? But ultimately myself, who am I in this space? And I felt like knowing the land was like a critical missing piece in everything that I was doing. And so I really started to buy a bunch of field guides and read field guides, like a really, this was pretty nerdy, but I just got really into it. And I wanted to learn the names of if you want to know what the mushrooms are, you have to learn the names of the trees, because only certain mushrooms grow by certain trees. And so once you start paying attention to the trees, you start to learn that like some of them have fruits and nuts that come with different seasons. And then you see the animals that are all associated with that too. And so then I wanted to know all those animals and the tree names. And so I got kind of obsessed with, maybe not obsessed, but just like really, really enthralled with like understanding nature. So I could ultimately like know myself a little better. I'm a huge fan of Robin Wall's Kimmerer that wrote the book Braiding Sweetgrass. If you walk away with anything today, please go and read that book. It's so good. And she really talks about understanding, like, yes, it's great to know the names of these plants and these mushrooms, but do you know their song? And I sit with that so much. Ooh, that just like made me emotional. You have to be still enough to hear and know the song of the mushroom that you're picking and the tree that you're interacting with. That's critical to knowing yourself because it's all so interconnected. You cannot know yourself if you don't even recognize the atmosphere that you're in. The atmosphere within is just a reflection of that. So you need to give yourself permission to sit still and quiet and be in those moments so that you can understand that it's not just you. There's so much more than that. So all that to say, I became a master naturalist because I got really obsessed with it. And I know Kate last time was advocating for master gardeners. I'm not in that program, and there's like a fun rivalry between the two. They're not quite the same thing, but they both embody the same essence of understanding the land that you occupy and also advocating for, removal of invasive species, and like, you've got to know those things. You've got to get those invasive species out of here so then the atmosphere around you is a healthy ecosystem, so then you are a healthy ecosystem. It's all one and the same. So again, if there's another thing I could advocate for is to please learn the land that you're on, even if it's your front yard. What the hell is that thing growing there? I don't know. Pull out your Google app. We were just talking about this. The Google app will take a picture for you and it will tell you it's probably one of these 4 things, and then you can do a little research and figure it out. Is this invasive? Do I need to get this out of here? I'm gonna get on this invasive soapbox real quick. It's so important and critical that we have native species growing here. I know you know. Because it services the ecosystem in a way that invasive species will not. So a good example of this, and I wish I had the freaking numbers because I didn't know I was gonna go this route, but oak trees service something like 400 species of like birds and insects and mammals and reptiles or whatever. But then like an invasive tree like the mimosa, maybe only services like 4 because it's not practical for the environment that's here. It's beautiful, it's attractive, yes, but it's also highly invasive, and it's choking out other plants that are trying to thrive and support the ecosystem. So I'll stop there, become a master naturalist. That shit's good stuff. It's good medicine. I use that term a lot. It's good medicine to learn the land that you're on. How much time do I have? I'm just rambling up here. Okay, nobody knows. Cool. Okay, cool. I'll wrap this up and just tell you where I'm at today. I took those 2 years off, became a master naturalist. Master naturalist too, here's the difference really quick. I said I was done, but I'm not. The master naturalist covers areas like trees, reptiles, bodies of water, mushrooms, the list goes on. It breaks it up into like different categories. And so that's why I liked it, because it kind of encompassed everything that I was interested in learning. Also, field guides are really freaking cool. So just get some field guides that are for this land and just read them. It's crazy what's out there. So there I was, like totally tapped. I was starting a newsletter with my art practice, really infusing all of this new knowledge I was learning, recognizing the spiritual essence of the great blue heron, which is something that I also call medicine. Witnessing, this is my medicine for this year, and you're going to probably see me get emotional, is the great blue heron in flight. The great blue heron is what some people might call a crane. You usually see them solitary, standing in water, and they're standing still. It's because they're fishing. For whatever reason, this year, I have seen so many herons in flight, not just in the water. And that to me is spirituality. And when you can start to recognize the patterns, that to me, I feel like Spirit's talking to me. There's a message here. This is reoccurring. I cannot deny this. This is happening over and over again. And if some of you follow me on Instagram, you know that I care a lot about number sequences. They show up a lot for me. And this year it's been the 2222, and I know it's year 2022, and that's easy to do. But it just keeps happening, and usually at the same time that I will see a heron in flight. These are strange ways that I just very simply, I feel like it's a hat tip from the Spirit, just saying like, I see you and I'm still here. And I'm like, ooh, yeah, thank you. I needed that reminder. I needed to be reminded of that so that I don't let my ego speak louder than my spirit. So there I was in that. I was in that space, real heavy, with mushrooms. This year it's herons. And I got an email from Allison Esposito, who is now my boss, who said, I see you, and I see what you've done in Northwest Arkansas for the creative community and for Springdale. And I have this new huge project that I think you should lead. And I met with her, and she was, I work with Cash, as Jessica mentioned, Creative Arkansas Community Hub and Exchange. And if you have questions about what the heck that actually means, just ask me. It's too much to unpack right here. But essentially, Allison was partnering with a funder to acquire and reimagine the Art Center of the Ozarks in downtown Springdale, which is like the longest standing arts institution in Northwest Arkansas, even older than the Walton Arts Center. It was founded by a couple, and they were just like trying to make magic happen there for like 60 years. Again, I won't go into the details of how that sort of crumbled in a sense of a necessary like unplugging of this space because it needed to just hit restart. Shout out to Chloe, who's here, who's on our leadership council. Allison approached me and was like, do you want to lead this thing and try to like fix it? And I was like, no, I don't. It's too much. This is way too much. I'm not even capable of this. I'm like, I have a lot of magic. I can feel that I have a lot of magic, but not that much magic. Like, that's too much. So she worked on me and ultimately was like, I got you. We have a whole team of people that are going to support you. This is going to be okay. So now I'm working there as the artist and community manager. That's my title. We now have 5 employees, and we are reimagining what an art center in 2022 should look like. And as you can imagine, the script is totally different than anything we've ever seen or experienced. And that is why I took on this project, because I was given permission to just try and fail, course correct, experiment. And so that's what I'm there now today doing. I've been there for 2 years. I started in November 2020, was given the keys to a 25,000 square foot facility and said, run with it. And I'm like, it's 2020. Nobody gives a shit about this. But what I'll end on this note and just say too, something I'm really proud that I was able to do during this time with Cash is last year, after I was given the keys in July, I was like, you know what we need to do? We just need to give artists money to come in here and do stuff because nobody knows what this space is. It's not been a space where artists could traditionally walk in and present their ideas and do it. And so trying to figure out how to make that a space that makes sense to the community in this era today. And so I, along with my work partner, John Wayne Farr, shout out to that kid, I love him so much. We were like, let's just give money to artists to just come in and do whatever they want to do. With the pretense that it has to be, they have to test and try something and expand on what they've been doing. So we were able to get $170,000 that we put directly into the hands of artists to do cool projects in that space, and it just launched. We just did our first project in June. So it's a year-long project. We're just on the front end of it, trying to see what that looks like, but it's for musicians and curators, theater. There's so many layers to it. There's 5 different grant programs within that. So that's something right now that's bringing me life, is just giving money back to artists to continue to express themselves creatively so that it further supports this creative community, because I wholeheartedly believe that we have all the talent. We have everything we need right here. People come in, great, that's wonderful, add to it. But let's celebrate what's here and elevate that so that we can we can retain all of you people so that you're not moving off and having to go to other cities. So that's something that's really important to me, is to advocate for retention. So I'm talking too much. I'm happy. Do I have time for Q&A if you guys have questions? Okay, couple of questions. If anybody has any, I'm happy to answer. I know I talked a whole hell of a lot. Yes? That's such a good question. She asks, like, what's the hardest thing when you're starting a new project, and how do I infuse like spirituality in that? The first thing that came to mind when you're saying that is myself. I get in my way, and I think we're all like familiar with that narrative, right? Honestly, I try to like step into that like fearlessness where like it's totally okay if 4 people show up. That to me is a success. It's totally okay if I make this dumb painting and nobody ever buys it and I have to paint back over it in a year from now. So I think giving yourself permission to fail is probably at the root of that, and being comfortable in knowing that like it's okay. It's totally okay if no one is into what you're doing. Because really what the reality is that's not true. People are gonna care. This is something I say to my daughters quite a lot. They're 13 and 19. Nobody gives a shit about your photography or your writing or your paintings or pottery as much as you do. If you went to your family and said, I don't think I'm gonna do that anymore, they'd be like, we honor that. Or I hope that you would have a supportive space that people would say that. Like, that's fine. What are you gonna do next? No one's gonna advocate for your creative process as much as you. So if you give a shit about it, fight like hell for it, because that's your thing. And Elizabeth Gilbert, who's another great author, she says in the book Big Magic, an idea will land on you. There's an idea in the ether, and an idea will land on you, and it's your choice to either pick it up and do something with it or to put it down. Because if you don't do it, it's gonna blow back into the ether and it's gonna land on this person and they're gonna do it, and then you're gonna be like, damn it, that was my idea. So that's what I would say, act on it. If you care enough about it, act on it and don't be afraid to fail. Or find that other person it's landed on and partner with them and make it happen. And don't be afraid to partner with people, because everybody's looking for somebody to work with all the time. So probably one more question and I'll make a short answer. Yeah. Super good question. He asked, what do you do when you have creative burnout and trying to push past a project, or get past that? Did I say that right? I shift. I keep my hands in a lot of buckets. So I do, and I mean, even in 2020, I started spoon carving because I thought that, that made sense in that moment for me, because paintings, I tend to work on a lot of paintings at one time. And I was literally in a standoff with my artwork because I was walking in there like, okay, today's the day I'm gonna paint these things. And then it was just like nothing was coming. I'm like, I'm doing the same old shit over and over again. So like, what do I do? And I had to wrestle with that for a long time. That's one instance. I have this happens all the time. And so I've learned, just shift. And I just picked up some scrap wood and found some old printmaking tools that I had that were not appropriate for wood carving, but I used what I had and started just digging in and started carving some spoons. And I sold those, and what wound up happening was I was able to tap back into the spirit of creativity, and ideas for paintings started flowing again. So it's either that or community projects. If the studio is too overwhelming, it's too hard to do, then if you have an idea, I started a supper club one time because I felt like that was appropriate in the moment. It was just like, let's just have a cool ass handmade supper club where everything at the place setting is handmade and people get to keep it. So I'm not creating things other than like an experience. So I just try to keep my hands in different buckets so that I can pivot. So if this is not working, this will, and it'll come full circle back to this space. All right, thank you guys so much.